a week and a half or two while I was waiting for the response. This particular one, I told everybody, pray for me. Oh, I don't know that, but if I get this job, it will be God that did it for me, like that kind of thing. So it turned out they called me back, and I was very surprised. And they literally told me to come and start like the very next week. Now this is where it gets funny. So about the time they called me back, the other one. Hi, welcome once again to All Questions Podcast. I have here with me Joseph and Victor, and today we'll be talking about waiting. Have you ever felt stuck with your life, stuck and wondering how everybody seems to be going forward and you're not? Well, we want to dive gradually into that conversation about what it means to wait, what it means to wait on God, wait for God, and why is waiting important. And that's the conversation for today. Waiting, really, what does it mean to be stuck? I have here the scripture just to help while we put our thoughts together. Psalm chapter 27 verse 14, which says, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your hearts." So what comes to mind when you hear of the concept of waiting? What does it mean to wait? Have you ever had an experience where you had to wait for something? How did you go about it? What were the years you did? What generally comes to mind? Any stories, any references? Whatever it is you have in your mind, you can tell us about.
I ever felt stuck. I think feeling stuck is something that a lot of us can relate to, and I'll just state it from my perspective. Yeah, of course, in life, at several points, especially when you're transitioning from different phases of life, you experience those moments of feeling stuck, and yeah, it's something that we've all faced. I'll just start with that. So yeah, I have felt stuck.
Nice. Joseph, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I certainly will agree with that. I have also felt stuck, and if you don't mind, like for example, it was roughly after I graduated from school. Of course, there are expectations. You're an adult, and expectations to get a job, right? And for me, it was okay. So in terms of waiting, there's the part of what to do while you wait. For example, for me, waiting for a job, of course, what to do is get ready for the job, get yourself prepared and everything. But there are times where you are ticking all the boxes, you are doing what is expected of you, but things are not just aligning to what was expected, right? So for me, it was really, really a hard time. It felt like God was only interested in my spiritual life. It felt like, okay, only all that God cares about was get the Holy Ghost, go to heaven, make the rapture. Although I knew that that's not true because that's not according to the Bible, but it just felt like that. And I kind of misunderstood, God's love to me. Like, God, if you love me, why are things not just aligning with what I'm expecting, right? And there's still also the human part of it, of like expectations from family and okay, what's happening now and everything. So it was really, really a rough time. And even in that waiting season, there's a thing of, okay, as I'm preparing, as I'm trying this, trying that, how do I know if this thing I'm doing is still according to what God expects of me? Especially when God has given you some type of let's say a vision, or I don't want to use the word revelation of your life, and you're like, okay, God, if I'm preparing for this great thing that you have for me, am I sure that these things I'm doing is actually according to this thing that you showed me about my life? So yeah, I felt that stuck season in my life.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Victor. I find a similarity with both your responses, and that similarity is, first of all, there's something that you do while you're waiting, and then there's like a process that you go through. So it also brings another question to mind, which is, in the process of waiting, what actually guides how we wait? Now, I haven't given my own experience, but for time, I would say that, of course, we've all experienced it, and I'm sure literally every person in the audience has had some opportunity or some season in their life where they had to wait. Life in itself is about waiting. You go to bed, you sleep, whether you're asleep or not, you wait for day to break, and then you wait to get to the end of the year, you wait to get to your next birthday, you wait at the junction to get the bus, you wait to get to your destination, you wait for the work day to end and all of that. So life in itself is waiting. So waiting is not a strange concept. But it's very interesting that as common as the concept of waiting is, we all seem to struggle with it, and the question is why. So I think it will be a good place to start to say, so what guides and informs how we go about this waiting, since we have not established in our own small way that waiting is part of our lives. It's not something we can avoid. So what do we do when we wait? Does anything come to mind?
Okay, I think while you're giving me several instances in which we wait, which are very practical, really. You really go to bed, you wait for a daybreak, right? And when you are at bus stop, you wait for a bus. And I think what I just observed in these instances that the fact that you're waiting does not separate from you doing something. I think we need to establish that waiting is not idle waiting, right? There has to be something being done in that period while you are expecting to get maybe the outcome. I think that Joseph was talking about the job. He talked about preparation. I think I caught that and I think it's understanding that while you are waiting for something, in that waiting period, you should be doing something, right? So I think start with that. Yeah.
All right.
Well, if I can ask a question on that. So like how would one know if your preparations are, well, I think the answer is because the Bible says, commit your ways unto the Lord, trust in Him, and He will give you the desires of your heart. So somehow, even if your preparations may be some missteps, God has a way of like aligning it.
It work out.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. So let me butt in again to say that while Victor was speaking, he also came to mind when he was talking about the different examples that came up. Now, what actually makes us not worry about the everyday things that we wait about is because of the information that we have about these things. If I go to bed at night and wake up at 3 a.m., I know okay, it's not daybreak yet. I check my clock. Oh, it's 3 a.m. So I still have maybe like 2-3 hours to sleep. So I go back to bed. Or maybe my indicator is it will be daybreak and I know it's time to get up.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that information. So I wait, continue. I make myself go back to sleep because I know day will break. There, waiting for the bus. You know that, at some point, the bus, sometimes it comes immediately, sometimes it takes 2 minutes, sometimes it takes 30 minutes, and then you go and lament at work that, I waited today. But you waited that long because you knew eventually the bus would come. So I find, like Joseph just mentioned about preparation, I find that because of the information we have about these everyday concepts, we are not alarmed about the waiting. But it also now happens that there are some aspects of our life that maybe we don't have enough information around, or we don't have all the control over, so we become nervous about that portion of waiting. And as Joseph also has asked about preparation helps how we wait. I find out even in these things that we don't have all the information about, how do we now gather the information in the waiting? And personally, as Christians, I would say that we have like somebody who knows the portions of our lives that we don't. And I want to believe that helps us in those aspects of our waiting life that we don't have all the information about, and He would guide us. If we can trust Him that He has all the information that we don't have about these concepts, and then we trust Him in that waiting. Which also, well, before I get back to another aspect of the questions that I want to ask, what other thing do we have to say?
The perspective you brought about us being Christians and having someone to trust. I think for the watcher or the person watching, I think that's where that's the That's like the main point of this whole discussion, because life happens to everybody, right? And for certain aspects of life, you have information. Being information is like the main thing, because when you have information, it informs how you act.
What you do. Like she was saying, again, I like the practical example of you sleeping and waking up, because it's something we all do, right? You know, it's not daybreak. You can go back to sleep, right?
Yeah, that's alarms.
See, you're not, exactly, you're not shocked, you're not anxious that will it be daybreak. It's a natural thing. You are sure that daybreak will just go back to sleep. So I think, like what Joseph was saying about preparation again, it's about what you focus on, because information starts with awareness, right? What are you aware of? So if you are aware of the fact that morning will come, you can rest, right? You are confident in that awareness, and you can if your mind starts to play games with you in that night season, you can tell your mind to shut up, because you know morning will come. Morning came yesterday, didn't it?
You will now be thinking about maybe you slept too much during the day, so that's why you're not sleeping well enough this night and morning is not
those
coming.
kind of things
You help your mind,
help you to now adjust and adapt, and all the nerves and all the anxiety just wears off, because you are much more equipped with some more information. So knowing that, okay, I'm waiting for this thing, I'm expecting this thing to come. So I think the focus should now be on not will it come, but how do I get ready for when it comes?
What information do I need to gather
to get ready for when it comes? Right? So it's about switching what you focus on, so that what you focus on now inform the kind of information you are gathering. Right? Because you are focusing on how do I prepare, then you are focusing on the preparation. It takes your mind off will it come? Because it's will it come that brings the anxiety and the stress that comes with waiting. Right? So I think
wow, thank you so much. So in the bid to not be quick to dish out theoretical information about how to wait, why it is important to wait on God as Christians, I would think if we have already talked about simple everyday experiences that involve waiting, and we don't fret about them because we have enough information, like we have said over and over again, to give us the confidence that this is the end result of this waiting. This is what, even though those things are actually very unpredictable, but we have so much information and we have had experience upon experience, so we know. But in the not so simple things in life that we still feel very nervous about, I feel like if any of us have like a practical experience about something that you have had to go through that at the time it was a bit uncertain and it made you uncomfortable to share, I would go first, and then of course if you have an experience you can support me. So what I remember, and I know at some point in one of our conversations we talked about it, was actually relating to what Joseph said about looking for a job after school. I remember then I just finished housemanship, and I had this very well arranged, thought out plan about how many months it would take me to get my first job and the kind of job that I want. And yes, I feel like the plan helped me a lot. But in terms of the timeline as to between when I finished housemanship and when I was going to get the job, it delayed a bit. And oddly, it wasn't a very long delay. I finished house job maybe mid-August. I didn't get the job until like mid-December. I'd expected that by the end of August I was going to have another job and I would just go and get it. But I knew that I had some solicitation that I had asked God for. And at the time when I asked God for them, they seemed a bit beyond my reach. Like I didn't qualify for the things I was asking for. And of course it comes with the fear and the pressure of, you're sure I will not bring down some of these specifications, like are you fit? When you get to that interview, what will give you the audacity to ask for that salary, and what do you think you have to get this thing? And I remember at the time when I eventually started to get the job openings to apply for, there were 2 of them, and it was a hard one. But then there's this thing about a track record, which I find that over time because of the small experiences that you have had with somebody or something. It's like a child to a father. When you go to your father and say, Daddy, I want to buy sweets. And Daddy gives you 10 naira today. It'll be easier for you to go to Daddy tomorrow. If Daddy had brushed you up and said, oh, I don't have 10 naira, you'll be nervous next time you want to go. And I find that with God too. Like when you ask God for something and you get it, it builds up your confidence for like the next episode, because you can refer. This one is not like, yes, Bible stories are beautiful, but sometimes it feels a bit out of place. You can say, oh, it's because it's in the Bible. Like you can almost refer to like a personal experience, like this happened for me at that time. So based on, in the same vein, I'm asking God again, like God did it for me, and this is not somebody's testimony, it's my testimony. And I feel like personally, it has helped me a lot with, I know of that thing that God did for me at that time, and I knew that it didn't come from any man. I actually asked God for it and He gave it. So I feel like that has helped me a lot with like some of the things that I ask for, especially things that I know that, as a matter of fact, the audacity to even ask for a job at all is coming off of that. So I did like the first application and went for the first interview. It seemed like it. Oddly, I had one of like my mentors in the field who happened to had been in the first place of interview, and there was that urge like, oh, that's Dr. So and so, and I could just tell him I'm applying for this job, so I would just talk to, because he's like a senior person. And I found that day I heard something say, so that it will be said that he got you the job. Was it him you asked for, or you asked me? So I didn't. And he didn't see me. That it was a very weird experience, because I let him go, and it felt like that's like my ticket to the job. But I just let it go, because I felt you asked God before you came here. So why are you? I could have said, because sometimes it could also be that what if God put the person there to do it for me? But I felt like in a small way, I'd had enough a relationship. And I'm not saying that to sound big-headed or anything, but like I knew in that moment that was not the way God wanted to do it for me. So I did it. So I did the first phase, second phase, and third phase interview for that job. And I was now waiting for a response, like a final response, because I felt like I'd gone this far with the interview, so obviously I was going to get it. But I still had maybe like a few questions about it. Then another one came. Now, when the second one came, it was, as a matter of fact, it wasn't, I still had like a few smaller ones that didn't really fit into my specification, but I still went. Maybe that's why in my mind I don't count those. But when the actual one that I eventually got came, it felt like, no. As a matter of fact, they asked for like, I think 5 documents. I had like 3 that I had qualified to have at that time. I didn't have everything. But I felt like I had my stories arranged to explain why I didn't have it yet and what I was doing to get it, that kind of thing. So I just thought, well, it wouldn't hurt to submit my application. It just might work out. So I submitted it and just went away. And then they called me for the interview. And I went through the interview, and surprisingly, they called me back out. No, I remember like a week and a half or 2 while I was waiting for the response. This particular one, I told everybody, pray for me. Oh, I don't know that, but if I get this job, it will be God that did it for me. Like that kind of thing. So it turned out they called me back, and I was very surprised. And they literally told me to come and start like the very next week. Now, this is where it gets funny. So about the time they called me back, the other one that I've been waiting for over like a month now finally called me back. And then I had gotten maybe like a part-time job that I was supposed to do for somebody else that now fell into the time that I was supposed to resume this other one that I did not think I could get. And I was now telling the people that I pray to God to get their job that, oh, can they give me some time? I am coming.
Options.
So I think it was another friend one day while like shuffling between which do I do, which do I go, and now told me, you want to sacrifice your future for temporary. Can you please tell the temporary people that you are no longer available, you can help them source for somebody else and go. And that's how I got the job. And over time, it may have become common now, but at the time, I knew that I didn't get that job because I qualified for it. I got it because I actually trusted God for it, and He did it for me. And there's a tendency to lose sight of that. And again, like I said before I started the story, He helped somehow to boost my confidence in God that if God can give me this thing, on the days that I feel like, oh, I did now talk about the parts where after God getting the job, I now needed to be the person that would do the job because it now felt like God had given me something that was more than me. And so, how will I do this job? It was very high end. I needed to, I needed to now trust God to do the job. Now, it wasn't that I didn't have the skill. I probably felt like I wasn't good enough or something. And it now brings back to the waiting, because in the process of waiting, God is building the relationship that we have with Him. The relationship to know that I gave it to you, so I would help you with it.
Exactly.
The relationship to build your character, to be the person that will be fit to take on and handle that thing that is making you wait for. So that sometimes it's not an idle wait. It's actually a growing in the waiting. I feel like I'm taking a lot of time. So please, if you have
I really love the journey that you shared, because at the end of the day you can see that it's worth the wait. It is worth the wait. So the mindset of God is wasting my time is not exactly true, because eventually you see, like even for me as well, I could see that the wait was worth it, and the things that He wanted me to learn in the process for what He had for me, it was worth it, and it was necessary. Exactly. And it's perfect timing. It's just perfect timing.
It's
just perfect
when
timing.
you think you're wasting a lot of time, you get and feel like, oh, okay, this is why it wasn't it's now. And that's not being overly spiritual or being overly fanatical, but those things actually come into play at the end of the day.
I think it alludes to what I was saying earlier about focus, right? Like what you put your mind on. If you were putting your mind on the fact that, okay, even though you still have the anxieties, you still have the nerves in the period of waiting, but if your mind still goes to at least some point that, okay, God is with me in this place, God is with me in this place, then that's why you can relate when you get the eventual results that this is, you can now they say hindsight is 2020. You can now trace it back and see why you had to wait. So waiting is not pleasant, but it is very necessary.
Even speaking about not pleasant, exactly, because even we talk about Abraham, great faith, the father of faith. But honestly, if you go through the process, he was not always on the high mountain. He had low moments, and God had to even come and encourage him. You could see Genesis 14:15, like God will come and tell him, "I'm your shield, I'm your exceeding great reward." He had to confirm to Abraham in the
over and reassure him
in the waiting,
and give him extra material to say
because we are human beings, and sometimes it's just dark. It's just like, God, what is happening? Are you even seeing me? Right
now that you brought the Bible story, there's so many references in the Bible to relate with Eve. Eve did not wait, and now that's on the negative side. That's like one very good conversation because it now brings the concept of what's the right way to wait, so that you don't get on the other side, you don't get in trouble. But before we start to talk about that, like more references in the Bible about different people that waited in the course of getting to the purpose that God wanted to achieve in their life. There's David, there's Joseph, there's Saul, there's Samuel. Saul is another name. Saul did not wait. That's 3, 4, 5 minutes that he didn't wait for Samuel. It cost him, like it's a very heartbreaking story, because it costs Saul's generation the throne of the kingdom of Israel. I remember the first time I came across that story, and like it was just those few minutes. And apart from the fact that he didn't wait, Saul, and that's where I feel maybe like sometimes the grace of God comes in, like the grace to have enough information to understand the why behind the waiting. God has a process, a method that He has put out. Like certain things are important. There's like a certain path you should go. Like, don't trivialize that path. Samuel was the prophet. You are the king. It was the place of the prophets to do the sacrifice. And because Paul did not understand the significance of his place versus Samuel's place, and the fact that he was not supposed to cross over and do the work that was supposed to be Samuel's, but he missed it. and it costs his generation. It's a very interesting conversation that you should literally sit down and have. Yeah. So and then of course, like I said earlier, if she listened to the serpent, and we are talked earlier about information. There's a lot of importance in the information that you have when you wait. And then media, as we come to the rounding up this section of the conversation, I think it will be important to emphasize that yes, I gave an analogy of a situation where I waited and it ended in a certain way. I have a lot of things in my life that I'm waiting on God for, and every other day I'm struggling and I'm worried and I'm asking God. I feel like this conversation actually helps me to go back and reflect on like how much information do I have on this concept? What am I really nervous about? And like Joseph also said, there is need for reinforcement. If you feel like you're lagging back, you can always go back to God and ask God, this is how I feel about this. Reinforce for me. Reinforce for me, oh Lord.
And he will. And he will.
And he does.
He will.
Yes. So that we don't feel like it's a conversation or it's a journey or it's a process for perfect people. We all are in the struggle of life together. And life itself, it's a struggle. So it's not alarming that you are struggling with maybe a situation or anything. Like to even come into the world today, you have to struggle to take in your first breath. So it's not, don't like society and social media these days tends to paint a perfect picture, and all you see is like the end product of the wait. People don't show people don't show process. People don't show that struggle and the process and the hustle and the down days. What you see is that beautiful picture and the highlights of their lives, and it puts us under a lot of pressure. But we're all in this struggle. We're all waiting in life. We're all waiting for our dreams to come true. We are all waiting on God for one thing or the other. So don't feel alone. Don't feel discouraged. God is out there. God is on the lookout to help us. He's enthusiastic about helping us. And one of our friends said earlier about how the mercies of God are new every morning. So when you feel like today was not your high day, tomorrow is another day. It's new, fresh mercy for a new round of wait. And God is enthusiastic about providing us the things that we need, if only we'll trust Him and ask Him for the strength and the information in whatever the case may be that we need on the matter. So any concluding comments?
I think I'll just go back to the bad examples we have from Scripture, right? About Eve, Saul, and how they could not wait. And we see how they could not cope with maybe what they thought they had to wait for when they eventually got it. Because Eve thought she got the capacity to recreate life, right, to reproduce, that kind of thing. And it led to disaster. But she didn't know that the waiting period was supposed to equip her, right?
With the
character to become that person that will be able to bear that eventuality, the responsibility of whatever promise that was to come. Of course, you have the desire, you have the plan, you have, but the understanding, again, mindset, focus, right, is that, okay, in this waiting period, Lord, what are you helping me to do? What is the information that you are feeding yourself with that period? Are you reassuring yourself of His promises? Are you doing that, or are you looking at social media, or are you comparing yourself with your neighbor? Because it's an individual thing. I think this is something we need to really emphasize, because social media just puts it out there and you are seeing a lot of people and comparing yourself with them. No. Abraham's waiting period was 25 years. Noah's one was 120 years.
Yeah, different timelines.
Abraham's waiting is so popular. Now that he says
people forget about Noah.
120.
120 years. And
Israel waited 400. Plus 30.
Plus 40.
He was
40. So different phases for different people, because we all have different purposes, right?
Yes.
So God has different purposes for us. We just need to keep reminding ourselves of the information that is right to equip us to complete.
All right, Joseph. Any?
That's basically that's basically it.
All right, to everybody, If you have any further comments, experience, you can share with us in the comments about things you have waited on God for, the ones you got, the process that you are in now. If you have any questions for us about waiting, we'll be on the lookout to hear from you. Thank you so much. See you next time. All right, bye everyone.